So you're thinking about buying your first home, but you've heard a lot of confusing information that sounds overwhelming? Well, in this video, I'll give you a brief overview from the buyer's perspective of the major steps involved in buying your first home. Hi, I'm Bob.Woolverton. I'm with Pure Real Estate in Bellevue, Washington. Here on YouTube, I'm known as your Northwest Realty Advisor. When we come back in 8 seconds, I'll give you a quick overview of the home buying process, so stick around. The first thing you need to know as a buyer is when you use a real estate agent to represent you, you do not pay your agent. The seller actually pays your agent for matching you to their listing. So you pay nothing out of your pocket for the services of your real estate agent. So why wouldn't you use an agent? As you'll see here in this video, buying a home is a complicated legal process, and you're going to want a trusted advisor to guide you and advise you through the process. So let's get started. You want to buy a home. You'll start by making a written offer to the seller. But making a written offer is actually your second step in the process. Before you make a written offer to buy a home, you must get pre-approved for your mortgage, assuming you don't have a barrel of cash lying around to make an all-cash offer. If you need to get a loan to buy the home, you'll need to find a reputable lender. Now let me tell you, lender selection is important. When I'm representing a seller, and I get a written offer that has a pre-approval letter attached from some lender I've never heard of, I'll research the lender's reputation for my client and give advice whether to accept that offer based on the lender's reputation. Your selection of a lender is really, really important. You want a lender with a great track record for on-time performance. Just imagine this scenario. You get right up to the day of closing on your new home. By the end of the day, you're expecting to get the keys to your new place. You're all ready to move. You've got your U-Haul rented, friends lined up to help you move, you've terminated the lease on your apartment, and another tenant's moving in right behind you. And then, at the last minute, you get a phone call from escrow letting you know the lender is delayed in getting funds wired to escrow. This means your deal is not going to close on time. This means your plans for moving your household is put on hold. At the same time, your landlord wants you out. The new tenants want you out. And the sellers are mad at you and may put your earnest money deposit in jeopardy because the sellers have plans too. And those are also now on hold. Failure on the lender's part can be a real logistical nightmare. Therefore, lender selection is very important. And if you're using a lender that you found on an app on your phone, that lender might come through on time, but even if they do, you're going to pay fees through the nose that you wouldn't pay with a reputable local lender. Once you select your reputable lender, you need to get pre-approved. That means the lender has reviewed all your documents and basically certifies you can afford a particular priced home. If you submit an offer without a pre-approval letter attached, how does the seller know you can even afford the home? The seller is going to select an offer that is accompanied by certification that the buyer is financially qualified to purchase the home. So you want to get your pre-approval letter first and have it ready to attach to any offer you decide to make. Okay, now you've selected a reputable lender and you have your pre-approval letter in hand and have attached it to your wonderful offer on the home you want to buy. Maybe you also attach an escalator clause to your offer. See my video about escalator clauses because there's a completely separate strategy for using escalator clauses. When you make an offer, the offer will normally include a check for your earnest money. It'll include the purchase and sale agreement, which is accompanied by a whole host of forms that we'll get to in a minute. But first, before we talk about your offer, let's talk about your earnest money. The amount of your earnest money deposit is important. It conveys to the seller how serious you are because if you default on any part of the contract, you are at risk of losing your earnest money to the seller. If someone makes a small earnest money deposit, let's say $1,000, they may be willing to walk away from that amount of money if things get difficult. And if you default on the contract, $1,000 in earnest money forfeited to the seller may not cover their losses and inconvenience. Whereas if you make a large earnest money deposit, like say $20,000, you aren't as likely to walk away from $20,000. You're more likely to do everything in your power to make this transaction work. And if you do default and forfeit your money to the seller, $20,000 is more likely to cover the seller's losses and inconvenience. So large amounts of earnest money do carry weight with the seller, and your earnest money does apply towards your purchase price as part of your down payment. So you're going to apply it to the transaction anyway. The question is, are you willing to put it up front to convey how serious you are about this transaction? Now let's get back to your offer. Your offer will contain the following forms. The Form 21, the purchase and sale agreement. This is the meat and potatoes of your offer. This form is 5 pages long. Form 22A, the financing addendum, this is 3 pages long. This form delineates the terms of how and when you are going to obtain your financing and what size down payment you're making on your loan. And for your down payment, if you have to sell some stock or liquidate a retirement fund or sell other property, those are known as contingent funds and have to be disclosed on a Form 22AR, a financing contingency notice. You'll want to watch my video on how to deal with contingent funds. But my best advice is, if you have to liquidate assets for your down payment, do it before you start home shopping, because it takes longer to liquidate assets than you may think. Liquidate them now, and then you have the cash on hand and won't have to worry about this. Your offer will also include a Form 22D optional clauses. This form is a 2-page long form. Form 22J, disclosure of lead-based paint and hazards, and this only applies if the home was built before 1978. This form is 2 pages long. Form 22K, identification of utilities addendum. This is a form provided by the seller that identifies who all the utility companies are who service the home. This form is 1 page long. Form 22T, the title contingency addendum. This is a form that gives you 5 days to review the title commitment for any concerns you may have regarding title on the property. This form is 1 page long. Form 35, your inspection addendum, designates how long you have to complete your inspection and allows you to terminate the contract if the inspection results are not to your liking. This form is 2 pages long. There will be an Exhibit A from the title company. That's the title commitment, describes the property in legal terms. Legally, the street address is not specific enough, so the title company will provide an Exhibit A, so the legal description of the property is included in the filing. Form 17 is a seller's disclosure. This is a form filled out by the seller. You will review this document before you submit your offer. This is a disclosure from the seller about anything and everything they know about the house. You sign this disclosure and include it with your offer, stating you're still interested in the home, even considering all the information that was disclosed in the Form 17. This form is 6 pages long. And a Form 35E, escalation addendum. If you choose to include an escalation clause, this form will stipulate the terms of your escalation, including what size increment you want to increase your offer by over any competing offers, and identifies the maximum amount to not exceed in your escalation. This form is 1 page long. If you didn't click on the link earlier to see my video on escalation clauses, here it is again. Your total offer will have approximately 30 pages of forms, sometimes more in special circumstances, and some brokerages have forms that are specific to that particular brokerage. But either way, it's a lot of paperwork. When you submit your offer, it will have an expiration date. Normally, an offer expires 2 or 3 days after it's made. However, you can make it expire that same day at 9 p.m. You can select a longer time period. It's a strategy you'll want to discuss with your agent at the time you make the offer, depending on other circumstances. After you submit your offer to the seller, they may exercise 3 options. They can accept your offer as written. They can make a counteroffer suggesting modifications to your offer, like a higher sales price or different timelines. There are many options here. Or they can ignore your offer and let it expire, which can happen if your offer is way too low, what they consider a lowball offer. If the seller counters your offer, then you have the same 3 options they just had. You can accept the counteroffer, you can counter their counteroffer, or you can ignore it and let it expire. Now, let's assume your offer is accepted. At this point, the home's status in the MLS is considered to be pending inspection. This means you have agreed to the terms of the purchase contract, and that contract is pending until a successful outcome on a home inspection is achieved. Now that you are pending inspection, here are your next steps. Your earnest money check gets deposited with escrow. The escrow company is the neutral third party who handles all the money and utility accounts and completes the title transfer consistent with the terms of the purchase and sale agreement. You start your loan application with your chosen lender. You order and pay for an inspection. At a minimum, you'll want a structural inspection. You may want a sewer scope if the home is very old. That's an additional inspection. And your structural inspector may recommend additional inspections, like a pest inspection if there's evidence of pests in the home, or may recommend a mold inspection if there's evidence of mold in the home. You will have to pay for these upfront, and normally you have about 10 days to get these all completed. The timeline on inspections can be extended if necessary through mutual agreement. You and your agent will negotiate anything found in the inspection. After the inspection, you can decide if you still want the home, or decide if it has too many problems, and you can walk away and get your earnest money returned. If there are some inspection items identified, you can decide if you want to live with them, or you can negotiate with the seller to mitigate them through either getting them fixed prior to closing or getting a monetary credit from the seller. And once you come to terms with the results of the inspection, the home goes into a status known as pending. The only thing pending now is getting to the closing date and getting your loan funds and the remaining down payment to escrow. And your loan funds are contingent on a successful appraisal. So let's talk about the appraisal for a moment. The purpose of the appraisal is to certify to the lender that the home has a market value equal to or higher than the amount you are borrowing to buy the home. Therefore, the lender is comfortable that if you default on your loan, they can sell the home and get their money back. If the market value is determined to be high enough, the appraisal doesn't say the exact amount of the appraisal. It will just say the home meets value. It could be way higher than what you're paying. If the market value is lower than what you are paying, the appraisal will say exactly what that value is, and you won't be able to get your financing. If the home doesn't appraise for the value you have agreed to pay for the home, there are three options. The seller can lower their price to match the appraisal amount. If the seller won't lower the price, you will have the option to bring more cash to the table if you really want the home, or you can terminate the transaction based on the inability to obtain financing and get your earnest money back and then start looking for another home. Now, let's assume that the appraisal is fine and you're on your way to closing. There will be closing costs. You will have to pay escrow fees. Now, escrow is a fee that's divided equally by the buyer and the seller, and this is the charge from the escrow company for being the neutral third party and coordinating the closing and opening of utility accounts, collecting and dispersing funds, and filing the legal paperwork with the county. You will have to also buy title insurance. Now, the seller buys a title insurance policy to protect you in case any defects are discovered in the title at a later date. But if you get a loan to buy your home, then you also have to buy a title insurance policy to cover your lender in case there are any defects in the title that are discovered at a later date. You'll also have to pay some partial payment on your mortgage payment. You'll have to make payment in advance on the first month of principal on your loan, as well as mortgage interest between your closing date and the end of the month, as well as prepayment of property taxes paid in advance between your closing date and the next billing date on your property taxes. Now, the partial payment of interest and principal paid on your mortgage at closing will vary depending on what day of the month your transaction closes. Escrow and your loan officer will be able to explain exactly how this is calculated in your specific situation. The insurance premium for your homeowner's insurance will also be included in your closing costs. There will be a recording fees as well as fees to the HOA, the Homeowners Association, if your home is part of an HOA, and perhaps a few other minor miscellaneous fees. However, prior to closing, escrow will send you an estimated summary of all your closing costs so you have time to review those for accuracy and to ask questions before closing. Then 1 or 2 days before closing, the escrow company will make an appointment for you to come to their office. In some cases, they can send a mobile notary to you if you can't make it to their office, where you will sign all the legal documents to transfer title into your name. And you'll bring a check to escrow for all your closing costs as described in the summary of closing costs. When all of this is done, there is one final step. The escrow company takes all the legal documents to the county recorder's office and files them with the county. When that filing occurs, the recorder's office issues recording numbers as a form of tracking that specific filing. Escrow will notify you when recording numbers are received, and then it's official. You now legally own a new home. And there you have it, a brief overview of the process of buying a home, all summarized in what, about 12 or 13 minutes? Now, this is just an overview, and at many steps in this process, there can be a variety of subroutines that can occur and need to be addressed. But this is a very short overview of a complicated process that, in this case, we're assuming everything went really well. Some transactions can be far more challenging than this overview might suggest. Now, I hope you found value in today's video. If you did, click that subscribe button and click that reminder bell so you'll be notified when I post new videos. If you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. That's feedback to me that I'm giving you information of value. And last but not least, please share this link with someone you know who can benefit from the information on this YouTube channel. You can find my email address and telephone number in the video description below. Call me or email me. I would love to hear from you, and I'd love to represent you in your next real estate transaction. I'm Bob.Woolverton. I'm with Pure Real Estate in Bellevue, Washington. Here on YouTube, I'm known as your Northwest Realty Advisor. Every week, I post new videos about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, as well as some home tours and listing videos. I'll see you next week.